Welcome to the One More Boom podcast, where we are a different breed. This is more than just a space for oil field and pipeline professionals. It's a community built for those who refuse to settle for the ordinary. You're here because you're ambitious, resilient, and driven to excel. At One More Boom, we're both more than just work. We're both thriving under pressure, breaking new ground, and pushing limits. This is your place to connect, learn, and grow with others who live for the challenge. You're not average, you're a different breed. Welcome to the One More Boom community.
Welcome to another episode of One More Boom podcast, and today we got some guests on here from Phoenix Foundation, and I'd love for you guys to introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure, I'm Kevin Boyd. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Phoenix Foundation.
And I'm Huba. I'm the second co-founder and the COO of the Phoenix Foundation.
Amazing. And a little background on who wants to go first.
Where do we start? Okay. Well, I'll go pre-fire. First, Kevin and I were in construction industry. I was a crane operator, and when I met Kevin, he was doing safety. We were working on the Children's Hospital, so I was running crane, and Kevin was doing the safety walkthroughs. And the first time we ever met, he was coming around checking logbooks, and I'm pretty diligent with my paperwork, and he was just finished lambasting another guy for not doing correct paperwork, and he came over and he asked me for mine, and it was all filled out, and we just kind of hit it off. We both kind of had the same mindset of just making sure that, things were right and good communication and, taking the time to make sure things were done right. And then I applied to work at a small town as a volunteer firefighter. And the first day I show up for recruit training, red-eyed rookie with my bag over my shoulder, lo and behold, my lieutenant was Kevin, and we reconnected there. And then we spent a lot of years in fire. He was my TO at the first place we worked. We were amalgamated into the fire service that we spent the bulk of our time in together. I was a captain on a truck. He was my lieutenant for 5 years. This was the late 90s, early 2000s of firefighting back in the days where, we were just post 9/11. We did a lot of the stuff that was a little dangerous back then. We did a lot of things. One truck calls, not a lot of backup. Just him and I pushing doors and putting out fires. Collapses and some dangerous stuff. And for 5 years, him and I we ran a truck on the far east side, outside of the city, and then shortly thereafter, you took a job overseas.
Yeah. So I started off. I took kind of a quick LOA for a bit, and I was going back and forth. So I'd do my 30-30, come back, work on the truck. And then it just got to the point where I was more involved in the work overseas. So I ended up leaving the fire service, but I was doing it over in the Middle East. So it was kind of continuing. Spent 11 years out there doing that and seeing things that no human should ever see. It took a toll on me, not only physically, but mentally. But of course, you don't know that when you're working out there, right? Like you come home and you think you're okay, but you're actually a pretty bad prick, and people around you are like, what's going on, and you don't notice it. So, I started realizing that, I'm in a bit of trouble. The thoughts that were going through my head, the attempts that I tried and things like that. And it came to a point where, I actually needed help. And I reached out to my family doctor, and of course the pills come, right? And then you put the pills in play, and I don't remember much of the first year because of these medications. And then I went off them because I actually started forgetting to take the meds, and I started feeling a little bit better. I started having a little bit better thoughts, but then I needed to go into therapy, and I knew I needed therapy because I just couldn't operate anymore. So, but we reconnected after, when every time I come back and forth, and I noticed Dax was struggling and I was struggling, and then the world ended in 2020, and we spent a lot of time out at our trailer, and we'd sit around the fire and drink the old fashions, and we just got discussing because he was going through a really, really bad period, and we were quite concerned about it, and a really good friend of ours that camps out there, Elliot, he's a hypnotherapist, but he's not one of these guys that will actually approach you. He'll talk to you. He knows how to talk to you. And he really started opening our eyes to the alternative therapies, because traditional talk therapy just wasn't helping. We were both on WCB. That wasn't helping. Of course, you're only limited to certain things at WCB. So sitting around there, we need to do something. We were talking, and we started realizing that, we're losing friends over this as well. And in 2014, my brother took his life, mental health and addictions issues. And that really, that sent me off on a path that I had no idea where I was going. Dax and I just sat there and we're thinking, we need to help. We have a friend out camping and he's a corrections officer, and he was off on WCB, and the stories he was telling us and not being able to get the support, not being able to get the help. So, we just started doing, talking. And of course, you're sitting around the fire, you're drinking and, coming up with silly ideas. And then it just morphed into that. It was basically the Phoenix Foundation came out of a necessity where we thought, we have to start helping people. We can't let this go anymore. Unfortunately, Dax lost his brother last year to addictions, possible suicide. We don't know, and again, that just kind of sets us back, but we see too many people. So we thought, we need to do something. And so the Phoenix Foundation is basically what we're doing is combining traditional talk therapy, because it does work for some people, I'm never going to bash that, but we're really pushing the holistic side, with the hypnotherapy and the Reiki and the natural path things, because, 3 people out of 10 really respond to traditional therapy. And then you've got that 6 or 7 that we classify as high risk because they don't have a corner to turn to. Right. So, and that's where we're sitting right now is, last year we decided it's time to go, time to pull the trigger, and we've pulled it, and here we are.
It's amazing journey. Hey, like how, and some of the best ideas do come around a fire. It doesn't matter if you're having a beer or whatever, but just chilling in nature, having a in the backyard with a bunch of boys. And sometimes they can be dangerous ideas, right? You can come up with some really, really good stuff, right? Talk about this in a little bit. Yeah. 100%.
It's kind of an oversimplification of what happened. Because it's hard to take the time. We could spend an entire hour just talking about why the development of the Phoenix Foundation came about. But really what we started doing was identifying kind of the gaps, the black holes and the pitfalls within the therapy system. And it's really good because we have not only construction background, oil field background. I've left the fire service now. I did 20 some years in fire and I've left back in oil field. And it's really good because a lot of the similarities that we've seen from the Phoenix Foundation opening up to start taking care of first responders really, really parlays over into all industry. And we're finding that the pitfalls in our industry almost mirror oil field, remote camp work, all of this stuff. And so as we developed, again, with this oversimplification, as we developed and we started doing testing and we started looking into data and research, we incessantly research. We are constantly looking at stuff. What we found is the therapy is good, but the access to therapy and the access to stuff that resonates with people and makes good change is really not available for a multitude of reasons. And so when we started saying, let's develop something that allows a person that is suffering to regain the pitfalls that traditional talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy just doesn't give them. And the more we looked at it, the more we found this kind of underlying, from my perspective as the COO, this underlying theme of cognitive behavioral therapy is that it's long and it's drawn out and it constantly brings your problems to the surface and you talk about them. In the theory, we joke about it. The theory is we talk about it until we become numb to it. Our approach is actually 180 degrees. It's different than that. We found that people as a whole are incredibly smart and they want the information quick. Again, with, we talk about the Phoenix Foundation going after like police, fire, EMS, but trades is no different. They learn at an accelerated pace. You have to learn extremely quickly. And a lot of these people are progressing. Like you say, you start off, as an apprentice and then you work up to, journeyman, and then you're taking a management role. So you're constantly learning. Well, what we found in the Phoenix Foundation, the approach, and Kevin will talk about it, we call it the 4-pillar method. We give you your information as fast as you can digest it. And so you set your pace on how quickly you are going to move through the program. And we found that people reacted to that so much better because, if I said to you, for example, you need to do step A, B, and C, and, generally it takes a week and you've got A, B, and C done in a session, we're moving on to D, E, F. And people seem to react because they feel like that progression, right? That progression is the big thing. But the missing piece is in most therapy is that you're doing it on your own. You're doing it by yourself. And again, over conversation, we were over having dinner one night, and, he's wrestling around with my kids, and he said, he says, what happens when you leave the office? And he has a great analogy about leaving therapy. And both him and I did this. We would leave cognitive behavioral therapy and we'd go outside.
You'd sit in your vehicle and it's like you've got all these thoughts in your head, right? And it's kind of like the same when you go home, when you're coming out of the field, you're thinking about what's going to happen to you when you get home. What routine are you going to fuck up? Pardon my language.
Yeah.
What the kids are in school and stuff like that. But, I'd go out to my truck and Dax would do the same, or, at his pace. And I'd sit there and I'm like, okay, well, I got all these thoughts and they're not good thoughts, right? So what am I supposed to do with it? I can't call my therapist because they've got another client. I can't call my friends because my friends are either sick and tired of listening to my bullshit, or they're going through the exact same thing. So you're sitting in the truck going, okay, well, do I take myself out right away or do I take a bunch of people with me?
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought.
100%.
Right? When you have those thoughts, like you're sitting there and you're thinking, damn, like that no normal person thinks like that. But when it comes to PTSD and mental health, we're not normal. There's nothing normal about it. So when you're sitting there struggling and you go home and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. So, and then your sleep pattern gets all buggered up, right? And from there, it just trickles down, as you say. And then what ends up happening with people like us is we actually think by being quiet and withdrawn and, being in the basement or the man cave, we're actually sheltering our families. We're keeping them away from our bad, our bad thoughts and our bad everything that we're doing. But in fact, we're actually dragging our family down with us. And that's why the majority of us get divorced. I mean, Dax has got a wife that's, fortunately, she's an amazing woman, puts up with my shit. I don't know why, but she allows me, she still won't allow me to take the kids shopping and try to pick up girls. But, I've lost relationships. At the beginning, you said you lost your relationship. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we do with the Phoenix Foundation is we actually bring the family in as well, because our actions directly affect our families. And, unless you're doing couples therapy or something like that, our families don't get help. But the things that we see, I don't want my family to see what I have in my head.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I want them to, how was your day? Just today coming up here, there was an incredibly bad accident on Deerfoot and Anderson. Truck's no longer there. So they closed it down. So we know so all those first responders that are there have seen this. And at the end of their shift, they've got to go home. Right. And how do you deal with that? Yes, there are, with the police force, there is, you've got steps, but it's limited. Yeah. Right. And, like in the oil field, you can't talk about this stuff. You're not a man if you start talking, saying, hey, I'm really struggling. Fucking suck it up. Like, go to the gym or, whatever.
Drink water.
Yeah. And that's where the addiction point comes in. Right? Yep. It doesn't take much to get addicted to something. And because you're trying to replace that pain. And then you're in a whole other world of trouble. So that's where, it's hard being in our situation. And it's hard being men. Like I don't care what anybody says, women think men have it easy. Yeah, we don't.
No,
we and I'm not trying to do this pity party shit. I'm not. But,
no, it is not a pity party thing because it's real, because we're dealing with it. We're talking about it right now. And each one of us has our own story, and it has nothing to do with the family. It has nothing to do with our coworkers. It has to do with us. And us telling these stories, it helps other people realize that, hey, those shitty thoughts that are going through your head that you don't think anyone else is having, well, they fucking are.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the parallels that really drove us to creating the 4-pillar system, when I left the fire service, I was a district chief. So I responded in a vehicle by myself, all hours of the night, all sorts of calls, just the bad ones. And unfortunately, my administration management didn't realize the type of calls I was going to, because again, we don't talk about them. But I was going to so much horrific stuff. And at the end of the night, the firefighters are going back, and 4 of them in a truck, and they're going back to the hall, and obviously they're bouncing stuff off each other. But I would drive by myself back to my house, family's asleep, I sneak into the house. Sometimes I was showering to get stuff off of me, and you'd look, and as you stand in the shower and you're like, what did I just do? And it kind of hit me on the same time as you finish your shift up pipeline. You're driving home by yourself. You have all of this time that you've not been trained how to actually process. All you are stuck with your thoughts in your F-350, bombing down the road at all hours of the night. You're tired, you're exhausted. And the only things you're thinking of is all of your problems in your head.
Yeah.
And as soon as I walk in the door, my wife is going to be on me because she misses you. And women show their affection in different ways. And it already creates this mental barrier in your head. She's going to be angry when I get home. I'm going to have a honey-do list. All I want to do is sleep and rest. I got to change the oil in the truck. I got to, change the oil in the welding machine. I got to go pick up more grinding discs. And I'm going to walk in the door and she's going to be like, well, you got to take little Billy to hockey. So what we do is we start kind of amplifying all of our thoughts, and we start amplifying, and we've all been there. And the guy that I talk to can say, oh, that ever happens to me. We sit there and we start obsessing. The radio gets quiet, and we start running scenarios over in our head, over and over and over and over again, until we become so stressed that when we walk in the door, it's inevitable that we're going to have an argument with our spouse.
Yes. And those thoughts, as you were saying that, one of my trips coming back from Grand Prairie, I was going back 17 and 4. So 17 days on, 4 days off. And I was driving back and I was literally punching myself because I was so numb and I wanted to feel something. I didn't even know why I was doing it, but I was driving and I was literally punching myself in the jaw. I've never told that on here before. But it's so relevant in the fact that I had all these, and they weren't even true. Whatever stories I had running through my head. That's why I like CBT personally for that portion of it, like what is true. And I had none of those tools. I didn't know. And things were good at home. Like at the time. And I'm like, I thought anyways. So what is this thing going through my head? I didn't even have any idea that was going on. And I was but I just wanted to feel something.
Yeah. But
being in the field from roughly, I was a welder from, I started in 98 and then I rigged up my own welding truck in 2004 and started working on the road 2006. So in 2018, when my wife left, I didn't know what the hell, I was so numb, but that's how I treated myself, protected myself would be the word. Yeah. But I had no idea that was going on. So that when I was jamming myself in the face driving home, that was in 2014, 2015. And so that whole time, that was just suppressing feelings, being lonely. The family is still carrying on with their life. Like the kids are growing. That doesn't stop. The wife has a whole social circle that I am not even part of. And it's like, what am I doing? Like, what is this for? And for me, what came out of that when I went to rehab and then after she left and then started doing some therapy, but then I realized quickly, this isn't for me because I just keep revisiting, like you said, revisiting those stories. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not progressing. This isn't what I want. I want to be looking forward and finding that purpose that I didn't have. I was literally just going to work just to make some money, pay the bills, buy a bigger house, buy a bigger truck. That was the purpose. Whoa. And that doesn't work.
Yeah. There's so much we can talk about just in what you said about identifying and how we really just kind of broke everything back and started identifying ourselves and saying like, okay, well, what do we know about this?
Yeah.
Okay, go research. What do we know about this? And then we'll go research. And then, okay, what do we know about this? And what we've kind of stumbled upon was the method of the Phoenix Foundation was to kind of flip it and then go at it a different way. And we have to thank for this. So obviously, 100%, he knows what he's talking about. But instead of cognitive behavioral therapy being the anchor, our anchor is integrated alternative therapies, which we've kind of coined as our term now. And we start going after the quick response in your brain. So in your brain, you have what's called an RAS. And if you don't know what the RAS is, in our industry, we call it Frank. Frank sits there a little typewriter. Yeah. Frank doesn't know good from bad, right from wrong. All he knows is what you tell him, right? So if you've ever heard of words of affirmation, so if you tell Frank, I'm happy, it goes, I'm happy. You ever seen the demonstration where they tell a guy to lift this weight and he tries to lift it, he can't, and you tell yourself 3 times, like, I'm strong, I can lift this weight. Your brain has more power over your body than you think. And we started looking into how do we tap into this. And with Elliot's guidance, we started learning how we can connect neurotransfer through the brain to start detaching emotion from the event. So if you try to remember something, if you remember how you walked through the door today, you'll picture in your mind, yeah, I opened the door, I walked in, or I unlocked it, I walked in. There's no emotional attachment to it. So you need to take kind of, in the business, the long path to remember. Think about your divorce or getting served your divorce papers, right? There's an emotional connection to that. And it instantly fires from the front to the back, boom, using emotion to remember the past. See, the past is the past. You cannot change it. It's gone forever. But emotion is what hangs on to it and drives us to have a response through our entire body. What we decided to do was to experiment on ourselves. What if we detach the emotion from the event? I had 218 of the worst calls a firefighter could have, and they're documented through WCB. And when they documented me with PTSD, they said, you have the worst case of PTSD we've ever seen in our lives. We have no idea how you're functioning. And yet at the time, I was numb. I wanted to feel something. I wanted to feel some sort of emotion. I couldn't, but the body would just use emotion to remind me to be in a state of numb. So we started experimenting when we went through our first stages of hypnotherapy and EMDR, and we started these alternative therapies. What we realized really quickly is we couldn't gravitate to the thought anymore because everything is just a thought.
Yeah.
Couldn't gravitate to it. We couldn't hold on to it. And we would let ourselves not feel guilty about people we couldn't save, or buildings we couldn't put out, or accidents we couldn't make a difference in. And at the same time, it was fights with our spouses, or maybe an interaction where we were really snappy with somebody. We'd forgive ourselves for those. And we started realizing that the emotional connection to the events that happened was the key to us hanging on to these like down-pressed emotional states. And this began this long journey of creating, again, I'm going to keep mentioning the 4 pillars, because when we actually went out and said, hey, is anybody doing this? They all kind of blinked at us and they're like, how'd you come up with this?
Yeah. So we target the feeling, right? Not the event. When you go into therapy, our therapists don't even talk about the event. They just want to know the feeling behind it. So just as Dax says, I'll quickly go through the four pillars on what we base our treatment and our plans on. So, everything in life has 4 pillars, right? Like this table, this chair, everything. And you take one of those pillars away, and it collapses. So what we do, so the first pillar, and each pillar is as important as the next and as the previous. So the first pillar is our intake. When you go to a therapist, you're there for an hour. The first 45 minutes, you're basically talking, what's going on. Getting to know this person. They don't know you from Adam. And one of the I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but one of the things that we recognized is therapists don't have a clue what we've gone through. They have no idea what it's like to work 12 hours in minus 40 degree temperatures, and then all of a sudden getting a phone call at dinner time because the dog shit on the carpet, right? They don't know that. It's very difficult for them to actually have, and I'm not going to say an understanding, because how we deal with trauma is completely different. So I can't say I understand what you're going through. I have an idea what you're going through because I've been in that situation, right? So that's the thing. So our intake, you're here with us for anywhere between 4 and 8 hours, right? Because we want to know absolutely everything that's going on with you. We want to talk to you. We want to get to know you. We want to know what your likes and dislikes are. One of the other thing that's really important in this intake process is we want your family to be there, right? If your kids are old enough, and if you agree to have your kids come in and talk with our clinicians, we want to know that, because we'd ask them, like, hey, what's going on with dad? Well, dad doesn't, we don't play ball anymore. Dad doesn't smile anymore. So we're going to get more information from your family than, because you don't know me. You haven't got a clue. You're not going to open up. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if we're best friends. Dax doesn't know some of the things that I've gone through because we just keep it quiet, right?
That's probably a good thing.
Right. So, and even if your ex, like if you still have a relationship with your ex because you have kids, say, hey, listen, I'm going to this therapy. Would you mind, come talking? And we get a better idea as to what you're going through, right? So we take that information. Our clinicians then, as a team, they sit down. So when we have our clinic, when we build the clinic, we're going to have kinesiologists, we're going to have physiotherapists, we're going to have trauma yoga, we're going to have sound and light therapy, we're going to have music therapy, all this stuff that you may like that is going to help you get through this process, right? Amazing. And so, after we get all this information, our clinicians sit down and we specifically build the treatment around you. It's not a cookie cutter treatment. There are no typical questions, right? We want you to, to open up to us and work on that feeling. We don't want to know if you saw that bad accident or, if you had, a bad childhood experience, whatever it is, we deal with the feeling. And even our clinician says, we don't care what happened. We just want that feeling. So we build that. And then you come back in and say, okay, listen, we think you would benefit from this therapy twice a week for the next 3 weeks. And the reason it's only 3 weeks, because it's intensive, right? We're doing the intensive therapy. You're getting the information as soon as you want it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not something that's going to progress over 18, 20, 23 weeks or whatever it is. You're going to look at it and say, wow, like, holy smokes. When I did my first hypnotherapy session, I like everybody, what we go through is you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. And when I was done, I woke up and Elliot goes, how do you feel? And I said, man, that's, I haven't rested like that for 20 minutes. He goes, oh, you were gone for 90 minutes. And I'm like, holy shit. He goes, try to sit up. So, and of course, as a typical old man, I go to push myself off the bed, and it felt like I was going to push myself through the ceiling because it was just so light. And it was basically the weight of the world was off me. And I'm like, holy shit. I was standing straighter. My neck was straighter. I just felt this relief, right? So anyways, that's the first part. We go through it. And then at the end of your 3 weeks, the clinicians sit down and they say, how's Nick doing? Well, you know what? I think he's excelled here, and here, but I could honestly think that he needs another couple of sessions. Absolutely. Come in. And I'll get to the payment stuff here in a minute, but you come in, you realize that, and then we say, yeah, Nick, thanks. So that's the second pillar is your treatment, right? That's your 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. And then, we reevaluate, right? So that's the biggest thing. So, your first and second, your first pillar is your intake, which is massive. Mm-hmm. Because with the therapist, you sit them with the first hour and it's gone. So your EAP is gone, right? Your $225 is automatic. And if you don't like your therapist,
you're doing it all over.
You're doing it all over again. So, most people only have about $1,000 in their EAP, and then maybe some have a health spending account, but some of those health spending accounts you're not allowed to use for therapies and stuff like that. And as well as holistic therapy is not covered under a lot of insurance companies. Yeah. So what we're doing, so that's your first, your intake. Your second pillar is the treatment. We design the treatment around you. But what we're also doing is we're taking cortisol levels. We're having blood tests done, and we're going to show that when you're amped, your cortisol levels are through the roof. And then, through our process, we're going to bring your cortisol levels down. We're doing a study right now on cortisol addiction.
Everybody gets addicted to cortisol.
Yeah.
It's slowly starting to emerge, and it's something that we know that it's there. We've been through it, but we're trying to also use that leverage to say, look, when someone has high cortisol levels because of stress, and then we start putting them through therapy, cortisol levels will drop because the brain is starting to feel better, but the body takes over and starts reproducing hormones and chemicals to keep you on edge, right? The old saber-toothed tiger thing. So in order to get the cortisol out of your body, it's going to take time. So third pillar was designed to start weaning you down to normal life again.
So the third pillar, which is really, really important, it brings us back to what we talked about earlier, is, you walk out of your therapist's office, you sit in the truck and you're like, okay, I'm fucking done. I'm pulling the trigger. When you leave the Phoenix Foundation, you now have a new brotherhood. You now have you're part of this community that you're never left alone, right? If you're having a bad day, and we all have our bad days, all you got to do is just call and say, hey, listen, you know what? I'm struggling. Can I come in? Fucking rights. Come on in. We'll talk to you, or I'll tell you what, we'll have somebody come meet you, or, hey, you know what? I'm actually loading the boat. You want to come out? We'll grab a therapist. We don't have to talk about fuck all, but we'll go out fishing, and, you're not left alone. Peer support is massive.
Yeah.
It is huge. And it's been proven that, that if you have these issues, we're that 3 o'clock morning friend, right? You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like, oh my God, these thoughts just, I can't, I'm scared. So instead of calling 911, because then things elevate to that, you call this number, we get you in touch with a therapist. They start talking to you. We make sure that you're safe. If need be, then we can always reach out and have, 911 come get you, whatever it is, but you're not alone. The peer support is massive. right? It's something that we are very proud to say that, yeah, you're no longer walking out. So when we leave the floor, you know, everybody says, oh, come back and, you know, talk to us. And, you know, 3 months later, you go back and, oh man, you know, I'm so glad that you're doing well. Oh, I'm busy. I got to wash the truck. I got to, you know, cook dinner, blah, blah, blah. Come back and, you know, come back in a couple of months. Come back in a couple of months. Guys are either, you know, shifted out or, you know, they've been transferred, you know, so they're no longer there. And then you give them a call. Oh yeah, you know, the kid's sick. And so that bond that you built over 20 years is no longer there. And it happens. Everybody that we know, there's a select few people that actually we talk to, right? It's not like you'll talk to these guys forever and ever. It's a job that you did. So that's the third pillar, is the peer support. It's massive. You know, you've got that support. You know, you can walk out of our building and say, oh, thank God, you know, I hope I never need it, but we're an insurance company that if you need it, you're there. And then the fourth pillar, which is something that we're also very proud of, is, you know, you've gone through a program. You believe our program. You think that, you know, this thing is going to work. Like it worked on me, and I want to make sure that other people have access to this. So you come to us and say, how can I help you? Well, we're going to train you in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. We're going to train you in hypnotherapy. We're going to train you in these things. So you can be a volunteer at the center and say, you know, if you need, or you can be that phone call and say, hey, you know what, Nick, can we go for coffee? Absolutely. Right. So you've got that training, you've got that knowledge of how to support other people that are going through this, because you've gone through it, and you realize that this program is something that is effective and something that is worthwhile. So, So
the fourth pillar, really, I gravitated to that. The fourth pillar is kind of outside of everything. We plan monthly events and we take people out, and I'll extrapolate, but we're going to start giving you tasks that you've never done before.
Yeah.
We're going to make it useful.
Get your purpose back.
Yeah. There's things that we've got planned. We've got, you know, some long range shooting instructors coming to do some long range rifle training. We have a butcher that is, the Phoenix we fundraise for this. We get 4 or 5 cows. We take a group and we show you how to break down an entire cow. When you leave, we send you home with a bunch of beef, but now you know how to break down your own meat.
Yeah.
We're going to do some carpentry stuff, some plumbing stuff, some welding stuff. We got tons of welders, right? Teach guys, you know, maybe you'll never be a welder, but every time you learn something, your brain reconfigures itself to be useful. I've learned a new skill. And I'm a professional fisherman, tournament fisherman. I love fishing. Fishing is the idea that you can go and get the elusive catch. It's hope. The whole day is built on hope. And we take people out on the fleet of boats that we have. We take them out fishing. And what you don't realize is, as part of this after group, is we have our therapists and our NLP specialists embedded in the boats. You may just think they're guys. And while you're fishing and while you're talking, we have people working with you again. So we plan these monthly events that we fundraise for, so we can take guys out and we can reconnect people. The networking aspect of that is huge, because we have people saying to us, well, you know, I'm done with being a paramedic. I'm done with being a fireman. I've done being a police officer or a corrections officer. I've done it for so long. I'm feeling better about myself. I really want to do something else. We had this great idea getting a hold of the apprenticeship board. And the apprenticeship board really, really early on has been super, super good with us. We may look at a transition service now that when you go through Phoenix, we start looking to say, well, would you like to transition out of your career into a trade? Get you back into welding, electrician, plumbing. So we give people hope in that they're not locked into a career that give them so much stress. We can move you. We can help you transition. And the Alberta government and our partners have been so good about this. And people really think, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I can transition, or I can, you know, I have another career that can keep my family safe and keep the bills paid. It gives them hope. It takes away another one of those stressors. And that was, like, Matt, we're oversimplifying it.
No,
but that's really
this is what people need simple so we can understand it. So I love it. I need simple. So no, this is really great. That's one of the reasons why my partner in this podcast, we wanted to start the podcast and then create a community around it for your last pillar, like that community, someone you can lean on. So we'll have to talk some more on that and see if
absolutely
maybe integrate the two. Because we're still doing our full-time stuff, and it's like, how do we do this community properly? Because when you do, like And it seems like you guys want to do things the right way, which is amazing. So, and that's the way we are. So that's why we haven't pulled the trigger, because we can't go all into it. Yeah. We're like, how do we do this? Because anytime you launch something, if you don't do it right, you're not going to get the effect that you want.
We also have to believe that at some point you got to fire a few rockets into the atmosphere and see 100%. What it says. We had no formal training. We had zero government ability. We're not doctors, but the first physician that we sat beside and pitched our idea to, it was really a cool meeting. I lay it all on the table, and I probably circled back 90 times, talked about a fence and a dog, and the ADHD's running wild. At the end, he sat back and he said, I got to tell you, your answers are 100% correct. I just don't know how you got there. Yeah. Like, you're so unconventional in the way that you approached the problem and how you ended up where you are.
Yeah.
And so we knew we were onto something when myself and Kevin had both gone through it, and we'd taken a couple select firefighter friends that were really struggling, and they went through it. And we started to see kind of immediate improvement, but then we saw this long-term, I would say, median improvement overall. And that's where we were like, well, what else is it missing? What is it needing? Like, what did we not, like, what did we miss?
Yeah.
And we constantly went back over this program. I can't tell you how many times, hours and hours of work, until we said, well, let's start bringing in. So we brought in psychologists and psychiatrists, and what are they called here? Psychotherapists?
Ontario, they're called
psychotherapists. And we brought in rehabilitational specialists, and we brought in addictions counselors, and we started going through all of this. And the things that we learned from each individual discipline formed what we're doing, because we learned that addictions, like 80% of people have addictive personalities. It doesn't matter what it is. You have your addiction. And then we learned from psychotherapists that a lot of people, when they have addictions, the addiction is because that emotional pain won't go away. And as soon as we started removing emotional pain, addictions went away without dealing with the addiction. And so it was this huge learning process with us. So we got a board together, and did we do it right the first time? No. But you know what? We brought on some people that are obviously way smarter than we are, but we're driven. And that's what this team needs is we drive. We're variable bosses. We drive. We constantly ask for things to be done in realistic timelines, because we want this, and our team's super passionate. And we went from a board of, like, it was the three of us,
at the start,
and now we're 9, 10. Yeah. And the more people that we get, we've got like governance, we've got medical doctors, we have HR people, we've got
just everybody we talk to. And it's been amazing on this journey that, I've been fortunate to fly back and forth, whatever, but I've met so many people on the plane, and they're like, oh my God, you got to do this. And it's been amazing. I've met senators, I've met, chiefs of indigenous groups. I've met people from the government. It's been fantastic. So,
and now we're sitting at you.
We're sitting at you. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I just really want to touch base really quick. And I was going to talk about the money aspect of it, because this is the key thing. Like, people are going to listen to this and they're going to say, well, you're full of shit. Like, we can't pay for this. Like, this is impossible. So this is what we're doing is we're ensuring, like, we're chasing the government, right? And I've written a policy so mental health to us has to be a standalone entity. It can't be under the guise of AHS. And I'm not going to get into my feelings about AHS. I'm sure everybody has some feeling about it, but it has to be standalone. AHS is so freaking top heavy that the budget goes to the top 30 or top 40 people. It gets trickled down into acute care. And then whatever acute care doesn't use, it gets trickled down into mental health care. And then people are relying on their insurance companies that you're only basically, again, paying $1,000 a year to get therapy. But a lot of therapy, like hypnotherapy and Reiki, is not covered. Some cover acupuncture, some of that. So what we're doing is we want this policy change. We want, and I've told some ministers this, I've told them that I want the Phoenix Foundation to be the go-to mental health provider in Alberta. And I will get it, because I'm determined to make sure we don't lose anybody else. Like, Dax and I are so sick and tired of getting phone calls and saying, you know what, we've lost another one. And then every time we get that call, a piece of me dies, and a piece of me gets even angrier that we got to stop this bullshit. So I don't know if, and I'm just going to jump back here. I don't know if people know this, but the government of Canada does not keep stats on suicides. They don't. You can't find stats on, you can find, this is the number, but it says on their website that these numbers may be, may not reflect the true number. During COVID, and I'm not just going to blame one government, there wasn't a single government in the world, no one, that took a look at what they did on the mental health aspect of people.
Yeah.
They closed fucking national parks.
Yeah.
You can't go hiking. Like, we could go on for days on this, but what they did to us was they tried to break, and again, people have their own thoughts, but what they did is they tried to break us, and they came close. I mean, you got police officers yelling at a 17-year-old playing pond hockey, a national pastime, and threatening to fucking tase you because you're outside playing pond hockey. Right? So the mental health, suicide rates went astronomically high. They went through the roof. And this is why the government stopped telling the deaths. All they said was, 3 people died, 2 people died, whatever it was. At the beginning, they were saying, okay, a 66-year-old man with heart disease died, and then you started getting into the lies about the children dying, and the media had to backtrack on a couple of those. Again, that's what it is. So anyways, I want the mental health to be a standalone entity with a standalone budget. And that way we can treat the mental health issue. But also we need to chase insurance companies to say, you know what, holistic treatment is a treatment and it needs to be covered by the insurance companies. So we're chasing funding from the government, and we're coming close to getting actual funding to get this off the ground with the government, but we're also chasing the private industry. The oil field, like the big companies, Shells and Suncor and those guys that, that you see it on a daily basis out on camps, that these guys are beaten down so bad, but they struggle. They have to pay the bills. Yeah. Right. So
they keep showing up. That's why we named this One More Boom. 100%.
Yeah. 100%.
This is what it is. So, we can take a lot of that offline and circle back with you and me, because I think just talking today, it sparked some ideas that we can do with this charity that I got access to.
Okay.
And access some of that private money with industry, and screw the government and screw all the other stuff. Yeah. We need to work in tandem with that because there is regulations on this stuff, but it's as far as funding it, there's some creative ways that I think we can go ahead and do that down.
We've always said from the beginning that, like, we've personally bankrolled this and another project.
I can't even eat craft dinner anymore. It's a yellow box macaroni and cheese with yellow wieners. Have you ever eaten a yellow wiener before? Holy Christ.
So we've been bankrolling this now to get it off the ground, and we're extremely passionate about it, and we know it's going to work. And from the culmination of about this time last year to now, that 1 year period, we've gained so much traction. And not only are we going to open our clinic with the help of our donors and sponsors and start taking care of people, our next phase, we're going to get political, and we are going to change the way that you have access to mental health care. The splitting that we're talking about right now, we're on the forefront of driving this wedge into AHS, and they're probably getting tired of listening to you. But we know in our heart of hearts that if we can take care of you mentally, there's a lot of the physical that will go away. And there's a lot of the physical harm or the injuries on the workplace that are caused from you being exhausted mentally, and you tweak a back or twist an ankle. Kevin's, how many years you been in safety? What was the root cause? Oh, it was slippery. It was carrying it the wrong way. Does anybody look and say, I'm mentally exhausted. Yeah. I'm emotionally drained. Yeah. That's not a true reason for safety. Well, we need to change that. We need to change the mindset and the thinking that we can go out and do these jobs, right? From Fort McMurray 40 below pipelining to running into a burning building. Emotionally, they're the same. And I'll argue that case with everybody. You're just as important as the next guy. And that's why we said, there's a lot of similarities between how we emotionally connect events. Our events are vastly different because we've lived 2 different lives, but our emotional connections are the exact same, right? We attach an emotion to something, we gravitate to it, and it becomes our perceptive universe. Like the whole world revolves around this instant.
Yeah.
And we just know that we can bring so much help to people and we can change the face of how we look at mental health. You've spoken with ministers, you've spoken with the premier.
I actually did get to speak to the premier, so
Amazing.
very, very shortly, very briefly, but it was, it doesn't matter who I talk to, I push these ideas and I tell them that we will change the world one person at a time, because as I mentioned, and I don't know, but there's a lot of people out there that have lost people to mental health, to PTSD, to the fact that you can no longer live with these thoughts. And I mean, it happened years ago up in Edmonton in the WCB building when that gentleman walked in there and unfortunately took his life, just because he was battling, right? Mm-hmm. And these things have to stop. Companies have to realize that, and I'm probably going to get crucified for this, mental health is above and beyond any DEI thing that is out there. If you lose your team, and they've got to stop thinking, well, you know what, if Nick goes, I'll just get another guy. But do you know how much money it takes to replace you? The 30 or 40 years that you've got an experience, then all of a sudden some guy goes up there and they're doing the job and it has to be fixed again and again and again. There is a huge cost that is coming with mental health and PTSD. And I think there are a few companies out there that are realizing that, oh shit, you know what? We can't do this. Yeah, we can just put another guy in there that's breathing. We have to keep Nick. Yeah. We have to keep the Nicks of the world, because he is our bread and butter. And if we lose the Nicks of our world, we're fucked.
Yeah. And that dollar doesn't get accounted for. It 100% doesn't. And it should, because it's when you're, especially your private industry, you're dealing with the bottom line. And if that's what you're looking at, okay, how can we responsibly make that happen and save families at the same time? Because this stuff doesn't have to happen. Everyone's going to keep going away to work because that stuff is not going to go away. And especially and then the paramedics and the first responders, that job is only going to get exponentially bigger as the population grows, which is going to happen.
The removal of moral injuries is something else that we're bringing forward. Moral injuries are something that we identify through fire departments, and that's, we would go to a structure fire out in the rural areas and we'd be under-equipped, understaffed, and under-trucked. And we're trying to fight a fire with no water because we don't have hydrants. We got to bring our own water, and we don't have enough crews. And we're trying to pull fire services from like other counties in to try to help us out. And you get this feeling like management doesn't care. And that phrase, for anybody that's in oil field, should already resonate. Management doesn't care. So these moral injuries, you're on site, you're underprepared, you're understaffed, the job is just going horrible, right? The moral injury starts taking place in the background. Management doesn't care. This company doesn't care. F this job, right? Now I'm just angry. Now my productivity goes down. My safety suffers because now I'm not focused on my job. So when we talk about these moral injuries, everybody says, well, what's a moral injury? Well, morally, you would need to control yourself and your outlook and your morals. But when you were going through school, like they told you what 70-18 rod was, but they tell you what a moral injury is.
Yeah.
So we want to enforce training in not only, these first responder jobs, but for every job, right? Mm-hmm. Your company should be putting you through some sort of a training that says, look, Nick, you're going up north.
Yeah.
You're going to be pipelined in the middle of nowhere. You're going to be away from your family. There's steps you need to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all been there. You need your 200 inches a day. You need to make your bank. You got to pay your truck, pay your welder, pay your supplies, keep the house over the kids. Oh, little Johnny's got hockey. Little Susie's got dance.
Mm-hmm.
And we will sacrifice our health to make bank, to keep our families.
Yeah.
And what we'll forget is we need to take care of ourselves, because without you, you're not making money for the family.
No.
But it's never ever trained in us. I can put out a fire 19 different ways. I can tell you how fast a building is going to burn by looking at it. But I couldn't tell myself how to drive home after seeing some of the horrific stuff that we saw and things that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things you did overseas. And how do we come home to a wife, and mine, hey, 18 years.
Yeah.
Finally,
she's the unicorn.
Yeah.
It really is. Like this one, I haven't got a clue. But
18 years, she'd never asked a question about what I did.
Yeah.
And I would get, as a district chief, I'd get phone calls. I'd wake up middle of the night and have to run out to a call. And right at the height of my mental health issues and right at the height of my physical issues, I came home one day and one night, it was probably midnight. I came in, threw the keys on the table, took the uniform off, threw it in the laundry bin, jumped in the shower, come out of the shower, walked into the bedroom, and my wife was sitting on the bed. And normally at bedtime, she shuts it down. She sat on the edge of the bed and she looked at me and she said, "Are you having an affair?" That was the furthest thing from my mind. I was seeing dead people on a weekly basis. I was the first point of contact for the union who was fighting with management. I'm trying to keep 7 fire stations and 27 rigs running with zero help. A council that's not giving me budget. Everybody asking me questions on my phone going off 24 hours a day. And I sat there and I was like, what? You think I have time for... And I looked at her and I stared at her and I said, you know what? I started running through all 218 of those calls, right? Dead children, families torn apart by fire, suicides, shootings, atrocious acts that we had to deal with. And I just kind of unloaded on her, unrelenting, just telling her about stuff. And she cheered up and she gave me a hug and she said, I had no idea what you did. Like, I had no idea. And in the next 24 hours, you came over. I got in hold of my family physician. I went to my family doctor. I said, hey, man, can you just write me off a week? I just need some time to sleep. And he's like, no, you're going to get help. Like, you're done. And my whole world imploded in that moment. And there's a lot of fear about saying, I need to get some help. There's so much fear. Stigma is the other thing we're trying to break.
Yeah. That's, and again, being in the oil field, being the man, that bullshit, it's hard, right?
It's really hard.
It's hard.
And luckily I had some really, really good support around me from some of the guys that I managed and obviously Kevin and my wife. And I just remember the next 4 weeks was a blur. I don't remember. I shut down, was waiting for WCB. Our first pillar, the minute you call us, we're engaged with you until we can get you in. I went weeks and not heard a thing. I went almost a month with no phone calls. What are you doing? I'm sitting at home every day. I take my kids to school. I would sit in a chair. It would feel like 10 minutes. Then my alarm would go off. Go get your kids. Just wrapped in my head. Just all these thoughts, all these feelings. I'm so hyperactive. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Cortisol's flowing through my body. My heart rate's out. I can't go to the gym. I can't focus. I couldn't focus on making your no-name craft dinner. And then I get into therapy, and I'd leave therapy after regurgitating 218 calls. And now what do I do? I don't know. I don't know how to act. I don't know if anything's getting better. It was just a horrible process.
So in that moment when you unloaded on your wife, because you hadn't talked about that, and then all of that stuff you've been repressing for decades, and now you're having to wait for somebody to pick up a fucking phone, right? Like you took the step and you're like, hey, I'm gonna talk to you because this is what society emotional intelligence. Great. But now you did not have any skills whatsoever.
Zero skills.
Yeah.
None. I was floundering in what I would think is the best thing to do, which we know now is wrong.
Yeah.
We are so sympathetic and empathetic to people that if you've never had that phone call from a friend, listen, I think I'm going to take my own life. If you've never had that phone call, that could be the scariest thing in the world. If you've never had that. Unfortunately, him and I have had that phone call too many times.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I can empathize with you because I was at a point where I was sitting in that chair and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't come home and feel like my family's behind a glass wall or my friends are behind a glass wall or anything that brought me happiness it was all glossed over. It was all numb. And I can absolutely sympathize with these people because it just seems like I can't wake up like this. I can't wake up tired. I can't not sleep. I can't have any joy in anything I do. Everything just seems great. And I empathize with these people. But the sunshine of this story is I'm at this low point. And I'm like, man, I don't think I can do this anymore. I was actually out of camp and Elliot comes, strolling by whistling. He's like, hey, champ, what's going on? I said, Elliot, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And he went, do what? I said, live.
Yeah.
And I think he had pizza because
You always have pizza or a cheeseburger. It's one of the two.
puts his pizza down. And in 7.5 minutes had me hypnotized. And for me, it was like a lightning bolt in my brain. I get it. I mean, it's like teaching you how to wire a motherboard. I mean, you know what you're doing. It makes sense. You're not proficient at it yet, but okay, wait a minute. I know what I'm doing. And then the rapid fire questions. Well, why is this? Why is that? Why did I feel better? And hypnotherapy really, really scares people because you think it's like what you've seen on TV. I'm going to wave my hand, touch your shoulder. You're going to pass out. You're going to tell me all your deepest, darkest secrets. It's not what we do. We don't do anything like that. You are cognizant and awake to a point. You are completely in control of your own self. But we use what's called guided imagery. And guided imagery is changing your brain waves to go into a down. See, you've got all these brain waves, right? You've got your beta brain waves. That's us talking right now. Mm-hmm. You got your alpha brain waves. And if I can drop you into alpha brain waves, I can start, for your listeners, I can get in there and I can start massaging your brain. I don't do it. You do it. I guide you through it. And some people are more susceptible to hypnotization or hypnotizing or suggestive therapies. But we don't just do that. Our therapists use hypnotizing, so hypnotherapy, and they use NLP at the exact same time. And NLP, it happens when you're awake. Neurolinguistic programming is very, very strong. It's that tapping into your RAS at the same time and challenging your own belief system. And so it can get you to change your perspective. NLP is literally taking you out of the chair that you're now, moving to this chair, giving you a completely new perspective of your problem. And as we do that quickly, you're really, really able to start having a different perspective on your problem. And your problem becomes different. It becomes smaller, or you realize that your problem is not huge.
Yeah.
It's minuscule. And we empower you to start looking at your problem in a different light. And I'm on the phone with Kevin immediately, but did you know Elliot is a hypnotherapist? He's like, no, I thought he was like a salesman or something. No, I'm like, you're going to go through. You have to do this. Yeah.
That's how he gets us drunk, because he clinitizes us and
he gets us drunk at little fashions. And then right away we're like, hey, we got to tap into this. And I said, you got to go do this. And he's like, and he didn't for months and months and months. He didn't go to hypno. And I finally asked him, like,
what up?
Why don't you go? And I won't let him answer. I'll tell you what his answer is. I'm afraid that if I go under hypno, I'm going to tell you things I don't want you to know. That's not how it works. That's not what we do. We don't get you to cluck like a chicken or tell us, your bank card number. We don't. Yeah. That's not what happens. And the day he got in your first session, he blew up my phone. Matt, he's like, my shoulders.
It was amazing. It really was. Like it was beyond anything that I've ever thought it would be, and it was so comforting. Just a quick story of someone that I know went through it this week, and they felt so much better like when they came out, and it was almost, and they were telling me that, do I deserve this, right? And that's one of the things that
good one.
We have to deal with is, do we deserve this, right?
Do we deserve happiness? Do we deserve to feel?
They told me, do I deserve to have this PTSD, because there's so many other people out there that are going through so many things? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, and this is the thing, is we battle, and it's a kind of a moral thing, right? And if you're kind of any type of empath, which I think a lot of us in this industry are, that because we wouldn't be doing it if we weren't, we've got to realize, I'm going to put Dax ahead of myself, and I'll do that 100%. I don't need that. He needs the therapy, not me. I'll pay for his therapy type thing. But the deserving part is, we deserve to be happy. We do. We deserve to be loved. We deserve to love. No matter what you think of yourself, you are a good person. You've tried to raise a family. The best that our lives do not come with a fucking book. It doesn't come with instruction. It's reading.
It's behind raising a child.
Exactly. And they put that IKEA set together on the other thing. Yeah. That's right.
We don't come with an instruction book, so we do the best that we can. And I'm not blaming our parents, but intergenerational trauma is a huge thing. And I look at my family, and I can go back and to see what my family was, and I realize, holy fuck, that's why things happened to me as a kid. Did they mean to do that? I don't think I hope they didn't mean to do it, but but because they went through it, it happens. So intergenerational trauma is a really big thing. And we could talk about this. There's so many things we could talk about for hours and hours and hours, but it's one of the things that we're addressing is this intergenerational trauma and talking about this.
We don't leave anything off the table.
We don't. And
that's the package we build for you.
Yeah.
It's tailored to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's the career, if it was an accident in life, if it,
it's the feeling. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that these thoughts, that's all they are. It's a thought.
Yeah.
Right. You can control the thought. The thought doesn't control you. Right. It doesn't. Yeah. I'm having this thought of suicide. Okay. Well, hang on. I need to, Frank, give me a hand here. I'm happy. I am a happy person. Absolutely. You're a happy person. Right. And that's why you have to surround yourself with people that build you up. Yeah. And I'm not building you up because I'm blowing smoke up your ass or I need $20, whatever it is. I'm building you up because you actually deserve it. You do deserve this. And it's something that I hear all the time. I'm struggling to believe that. I'm struggling. I don't believe that. I deserve that. Oh my God, you do. You absolutely 100% do.
On that note with the happiness, I think that's why, like, pouring into your family and being like, hey, they're happy. I'm doing this for them. I'm doing this for them. But why are you doing it for you? And it goes back to the purpose. It's like, yes, you're providing for your family, but you also have to build your life too.
Yes.
And most of us don't. Like, you fish and other things, right? Yeah. Which we can't talk about what I do on yeah. No, that's fair. I love it. And but I believe that's the missing piece that a lot of us miss. It's where you're 100% right, where you're pouring into everybody else, but you're not pouring into you. And it's like, but I'm doing it for them.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time. And I was that guy too. I was doing it for them. And that's why I went numb. Like, there's a lot that went behind it. Yeah. We touched a lot on it today between all these conversations, but it's like, I did none of that for me. Yeah. I had a motorcycle and I do that quite often. Right. But my purpose wasn't to get on a motorcycle and ride. Like, that's not a purpose. And this is why I do this now. Like, I get off by doing these podcasts and talking to cool people like yourselves. And it's amazing. And so I found that purpose, and now it's okay. Yeah. I lost myself in this life, found it, and I'm trying to piece that. I'm still, after 7 years, I'm trying to piece this together. Like, who am I? Why? But if I had to ask these questions when I was 20, holy shit, that would have been scary instead of just, being the drunk asshole that I was. But it was all part of it. But the sooner that you can find that purpose and figure out, like, who am I? Why am I doing this? It starts to make the pieces, the reasons why you're doing the things, instead of just doing the things and then it consumes you.
If I can tell one thing to people, young workers, emerging guys starting young families, anybody attempting anything, we would talk about training. For the best training I can give you is the 5 minutes that you're sitting on a plane. In the event of a cabin depressurization, masks fall from the top. What do they tell you to do? Put yours on first or put your kids on first? Put yours on first. It is not selfish to look after yourself, to then look after your family. And I can't stress this enough. We've all done this. We've all looked after our family at the expense of ourselves. And what did it do? And it's not because you were trying to be mean or you were trying to do something wrong. It's that we never understood the importance of looking after yourself so that you could build everybody else up. My kids are good coming home eating peanut butter sandwiches. They ask for it. Like, I don't have to take them to 5-star restaurants. My kids are more happy going out to our trailer and going out fishing on the boat and jumping off the boat swimming than they are with any PlayStation or game. And when I started realizing that they needed time, that they needed me to be available and in the moment for them, that was my, hey, wait a second, I got to look after me. And I was freshly out of the fire service, and there's this burning innate desire. I got to go back into first response. I have to do it. And I was in the process of getting on with another department in a different discipline. And I came home and I said, I'm good to go. We're moving on to the next steps. And my wife kind of looked at me and my kids looked at me and I said, I need to know your opinion. Do you want me to do this? And my youngest, he's so
he is the youngest 80-year-old I've ever met in my life. Like, he scares the shit out of me some days.
He's so wise. He said, Dad, I like my new dad. I like my crane operator dad.
Hmm.
He doesn't yell. He's happy. He's there for us. He takes time out of his day to do stuff with us. And in a moment of flashback of all the times when I was a district chief, phone could go off at any moment. I've got my uniform set. I'm in response mode at home.
Hmm.
That's not where you need to be. You don't need to be in pipeline mode when you were at home, right? You need to change the way you talk. You need to change the way you ask and order things. You need to be able to emotionally connect to the people that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And my kid said to me, Dad, I like the new dad. The crane operator dad's cool. He's there for us. He doesn't yell. He makes me pancakes when I ask him instead of saying he's busy. And it was almost like opening a box and then like sunshining in it. I was like, wait a second. Why do I want to put them through this again? For what? What was I looking for?
Yeah.
I know I'm going back into a career that's going to mentally damage me and emotionally damage me, physically damage me at a point. And here we are starting this. And I get, again, so much joy, as you do with the podcast. I get so much joy out of making a difference in people's lives in a different way. I canceled my application and, man, running crane's great. It's so good.
Yeah. And well, with that being said, though, is the goal, and we touched on it, everyone's going to keep doing those jobs. The first responders, they're going away for whatever reason. Is the goal to make sure that they have that type of crane operator dad to those families?
100%.
They're still going to do.
So no matter what, it takes a special person to become a first responder. And I'm not bragging about this, but it really does. And one of my therapists actually said this to me because, I'd be walking down the street and I'd be off. And it happened to me, numerous times where I saw a 25-year-old lady step out in front of a diesel and commit suicide right in front of me.
Mm.
And I'm like, why does that happen to me? Right. And she says, because you're the one that can deal with it. You're the one that can help. And I look back on what happened, and everybody around me was in absolute chaos. And I left my phone in the truck and I had to get this poor lady, like the worst thing that ever happened to her was, pumped out 3 kids and raised them. And all of a sudden sees this mess on the road. And I had to get the phone away from her and be calm and talk to dispatch to make sure that they had all the information. Well, I was treating this young lady that was, I was holding her hand and her life slipped right away.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing I could do, but she said it takes a special person. I always say I don't want to be that person anymore, but I know I'm kind of,
We're wired for it.
And I don't know if it's that cortisol level or if it's actually, this is what I've been chosen to do. They say that the 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. I know the day I was born. It was a Tuesday. It was 3:00 in the afternoon. The day I found out why was when we started this. And I know it sounds hokey and I know it sounds cheesy, but I don't really give a fuck. This is what I'm supposed to be doing because I know that people need help, and I know if I can sit in front of people and say, you know what, I can tell you my story, then you can tell your story. You don't have to be ashamed of it. I could tell you things that would make you puke because of what I've gone through, but that's my story and I'm proud of and people would say, well, would you change anything? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing would, because it wouldn't put me right here, right now. It wouldn't give me the skill, the knowledge, and the ability to help and reach out to people and make the demands on the government and make the demands on the private sector to say, you know what, you guys need to fucking smarten up and start treating your guys like they're people, not a fucking asset. They're people that have families, that have feelings.
And it's not a big ask. These are slight changes in policy with insurance companies and the access to mental health.
To mental health, but it's also to the industry, whether private or not, with the onboarding. Because if you had those skills when you came into that new role,
absolutely,
it's like, hey, this is part of your onboarding package. We know the stigmas. It just is.
So I was
presented the right.
I was working for a company a lot of years ago in the early 2000s, and I was running the Sierra up in Fort Nelson. I'm sure you've been up there 1,000 times. And I get this phone call in the morning, just before I was going out to the rig. And I think it was about 3.5 hours down the road. And so I'm driving along and I get this phone call just before you lose cell service. And they said, our medic's missing. I mean, what the fuck do you mean the medic's missing? And they said, we can't find the medic. And I'm still 2 hours out. I'm still whatever. So I'm pinning it. And now you can't do that down the Sierra because you get pulled over and get banned from it. But I'm thinking, what the fuck just happened? So I pull in, and the lease road is about 3 kilometers before you get to the rig. So I pull into the lease road and I see all these trucks about a kilometer from it. And I'm like, what is going on? And the MTC's there. And so I get out and it's minus 30. It's goddamn cold. And I go to the back of the MTC and there's this half naked kid with a t-shirt and long johns and a pair of socks on. I'm like, where did this kid come? It's our medic. He's never worked in the field before. They send him up to the middle of nowhere saying, you know what, you're going to be up there. You're going to do a 6-week rotation or whatever it was. 3 days in, he goes crazy because he doesn't understand. And of course, back then, we don't have what we have now. And, you know, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the cell phones. We don't have the games. We don't have that connection to the outside world. So he goes crazy and he starts walking in minus 30 degree temperatures. And it was a good thing that he only got a couple kilometers because he would have died within another hour. He honestly would have. But it's the company's responsibility to sit you down on your onboarding and say, listen, this is what's going to happen. This is how you're going to live. This is, you know, the days that you're working. This is what we've got up there for, you know, games or gyms or whatever it is. And this is the support that you have, right? We talked about Dave earlier. He set up, you know, and it was amazing the fact that he sets up in the back room of a cam and just, you know, anybody can go in there and talk. To me, that was a hero. That's a hero, that he's got the fortitude and the balls to do that. But even more of a hero is the guys that actually go in and talk to him or, you know, this is my problems. This is the thing. But you are right. It is absolutely up to the company to now start saying, listen, you're going into a shitty environment. And we will support you.
Yeah. I went up to, it was an oil company. We went to go do some integrity digs up in the Northwest Territories. And this was 2012. So cell phones were a thing, obviously, but not good. And then you get up there, there's no cell service whatsoever. I'm trying to say goodnight to the kids with a satellite phone in the middle of a lease. Like, no one prepares you for that. Like, I worked almost 15 years before that in the field, but that was totally different. It's like, okay, we're like, this is desolate. Like, but the work was the exact same. Like the scope of work was the exact same, but the challenges are different. But if you're not prepared for that, and nobody talks about that. So I think if that's part of the onboarding and maybe an assessment to see where someone's at mentally before they go, I think would be a great thing. Yeah. Along with that.
You know, we talk about this too, and we have to stop ourselves and be like, hey, look, one human trial at a time.
Oh, yeah. There's, because you can go down the rabbit hole forever with it, right? So you do, it's like anything you have to start with, and I think you guys are on the right track with that. And I'd love to help with that initiative here, because I think we can couple with what we're wanting to do with what you want. And also what we're looking at as well is, testosterone levels in men at any time over 35 or 30, it starts to decrease, right? So I think that has to do a lot with it. So if you're into the other side of the health stuff, we can look at that as well.
No, it's a full thing, and people don't realize that without physical help. And again, the person that I was saying that didn't think they deserved, you know, a PTSD or deserved happiness, you know, they were down for 4 months, literally in bed for 4 months, and, you know, going through test after test after test after test, and they couldn't find anything. And then they finally realized it's not physical, it's this, right?
It has so much power over the body.
And then when this starts to go, as we know, whether it's Alzheimer's or whether it's mental health or whatever it is, your body starts to shut down, like just completely starts to shut down. So it is imperative that we start taking care of the brain. Like it's imperative, or we're going to lose it. Like we've lost, you know, I'm not going to go where I was going to go, but we have to start taking care of mental health.
Yeah. So what's the next steps then for you guys?
Well, I mean, currently at this moment, we are kind of on that cusp of our first initial big fund. And once that funding comes in, and obviously our ethics board review, once we're sponsored, we are running a first of what we hope for is 3 individual pilot programs where we take in 10 people. We do cortisol monitoring. We put them through a pared down version of what we would be when we're open. And we're looking strictly at the data of what we've hypothesized as part of a long-term PTSD, long-term mental degradation of what you should be at. and the effects that it's having on the body that we can control or that we can alter from a state of therapy. Once we have our first pilot program, the Alberta government is asking for our results. We'll run a second and third pilot program, all the same. We're not changing any of the variables. The only variables that change are where you come from. And I'm hoping what it's going to show us is that, our first batch of first responders and our second batch of mixed and our third batch, which would be 2 control subjects and then 2 people that have gone through our program, we can line up that data and say, look, these people were coming in all on day one. It didn't matter their discipline. It didn't matter if they were a mechanic, a firefighter, a police officer. We're showing all of these levels. Now, this is hypothesizing, but we're pretty sure that our results are going to be where we think they are. And then we see a downturn in cortisol levels and an upturn in mental health. So we're seeing this crossover. And at that crossover, we've hypothesized that's when the body will take over and say, well, I'll use the analogy. You're running from the saber-toothed tiger. Everything's pumping, and now you're safe. And you come into that first night and the brain's like, okay, I got to power down and sleep. But the body goes, don't worry, brain. I'm going to pump a whole bunch of chemicals in you to make sure you'll wake up on a dime and be in that responder mode, right? In protection mode. And so the next day when you wake up, your brain is already caffeinated and given her. So your thoughts are intrusive and you go down the rabbit holes of thoughts and now those levels will return. So this pilot program on my side of the table, Kevin is kind of looking at a different thing and Elliot is looking at a different thing. And we're kind of looking at different things. On my side, I'm seeing that if you are addicted to cortisol, well, naturally your cortisol levels start raising again post-therapy. So this is where we're going to start with pillar 3, pillar 4. We can still maintain contact with you and still do voluntary blood tests and say, hey, look, the reason why you're having, 3 good days and 2 bad days is because your cortisol levels are raising again. Now, is it because you're not practicing, mindfulness? We're trying to recoin that term. That term.
Yes, it does, but I agree with it. So
we're sitting doing it. We just want to come up with a better term that sells a little easier. Like, you gotta be mindful of it.
What?
Right? But if we can come up with a cool term, people will do it.
Yeah.
But we want to see if those cortisol levels start spiking again, and that's where we fall back into the running thoughts, or we run into maybe more arguments or friction with the spouse because we don't think it's your fault. We think it's the body's ability to be addicted to cortisol. And as I've been doing some studies and talking with some other doctors, they were kind of like, well, yeah, it can, but it was never looked at in a position of PTSD or mental health downturn and the addiction of cortisol to keep you running at a level where you're cognizant, right? Your body doesn't know that it's a bill due on Friday or a saber-toothed tiger. It doesn't know. So it just reacts to the threats.
Yeah.
And it's not fair because you're not really under threat of duress. Your bill's not due till Friday. It's Sunday of the week before. Why are you so hyper focused about it? It's not necessarily your fault. It's all the things that's going on. So if we can prove that and we can further fund what we're doing, we're hoping to get the clinic open and we're hoping to put our full program in place, which is massage therapy, chiropractic, Reiki,
The whole 9 yards.
sound light therapy, kinesiologist. Early on, we said, if you came into our office, day one, first day we meet Nick and we do the intake and we're like, yep, Nick, what do you like doing? Well, I like to do this and that. I like to go on walks and I used to work out a bunch. The first thing we're going to do is put you through a workout on day one of your therapy. First thing I'm doing, we're putting you through a workout. We're going to blast you with a trainer. You're doing a workout. And we all know the reasons why, right? The endorphins. But then right after your workout, you're going for massage therapy or chiro or yoga. If you're not a person that likes to be touched, we'll put you through stretching. And so what we've done is we've taken these, sporadic wavelengths and we've leveled them out so that when you come in to Hypno, we've already got you relaxed. We've already got you agreeable to say, yeah, I'm agreeing to try this. Honestly, you know what? I actually feel pretty good. I just got my butt kicked out from the gym and then I stretched for a bit. Yeah. You gave me some lunch and now I'm ready to go. And when we trialed this with Kevin, myself, and a couple other people, we just did, 10, 15 minutes of exercise, just treadmill work, and versus just coming in and sitting down. And it was so much, the results were the same. It was the timeline. It was so much more impactful in a short amount of time doing the guided imagery and the NLP. It worked so fast that people were like, I get it. I understand. And so with 2 or 3 sessions of reinforcement and then basically giving you the toolbox, okay, Nick, remember what we did here. This is what you can do on your own. And then the phone calls, hey, Kevin, having a tough day. Well, did you do your mindfulness? Well, yeah, but I'm still having a tough day. Just need someone to talk to? You just want to like get it out there?
Did you work out though? Because if they have that now, because it worked and it's proven, but if they have now, here's your toolbox and this is your new daily habit that, okay, you're going to work out, then you're going to go do this and you're going to do this, and then you're going to address what's in your brain. Wow. Right? Like,
It seems to be a little bit clearer.
yeah. Because how many times, even like when I did do the few sessions of therapy, like you had all of these things happening all at once, whether that was work stuff or family or kids, and then a fight with the ex, like before I went in. Well, that's not even reality that I'm stepping into that session, right? So I like that. I like that approach a lot.
And that was exactly why we came to the therapist and said, this is what we're going to do. Like you have no choice in it. You're either part of the program or not, because this is what we need. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. Is the basis of the Phoenix Foundation is not therapy. It's teaching you how to open that toolbox and continue on so that you are that guy. We talked about it earlier about my son. Like, I like Crane Operator Dad.
Yeah.
Well, Crane Operator Dad has gone through the Phoenix Foundation program and has learned to control thoughts, emotions, and himself so that he's a better provider for the family. And we all say, oh, do you wish you would have known that back in your 20s? Well, if I did, we wouldn't be sitting here today having this conversation. We wouldn't be able to reach out and help all of the Albertans, everybody who we can address. And we have to go through these things in order to realize.
Oh, we do. And as men, that's what we need to do. We usually have to burn things to the ground before we realize that, hey, and it's just the way humanity is. But if we can change that, because it doesn't have to happen. So yes, that's why I'm here today talking with you guys, is because of things that have happened in my past.
Yeah.
So,
And that's where I step in on my role, is I start pushing the government and I start pushing the private sector and I start pushing the people to realize that we are more than just a worker, that we need that support. And you know what, invest in your people, invest in the Phoenix Foundation. And that's, we will make sure that you get the best of the best. And we know we've gone through it and yeah, we're biased about it because we know that this works, right? So, pushing people into understanding that, investing in mental health is going to save you more money. Like everybody says, safety never made money. Well, safety actually saves you a lot of money, right? And same now with mental health, with the way things are going with, financially, I don't know a single person that isn't struggling financially. And that's a huge stressor. You talk to anybody that's got divorced and I bet you 7 out of 10 money was the issue, right? Maybe 8, maybe 9, who knows? But that's why we want to make sure that our clients don't pay for this. And I don't want anybody to pay for it. Like I said, I want the mental health aspect removed from under AHS and its own standalone entity with its own budget. So people, we can walk into a hospital and get casted, but it takes months and thousands of dollars to fix this, right? How is that fair? Without this, I can't utilize these. I shouldn't do that because I get in trouble.
We discussed too about like costing and budgeting and where you get the money from this. The cost savings in our program, in the way that we feel it will work, because it's intense and we can move people through it fast. And then we can get people on the other end still having a support network. We've all been in an industry where you have, Angry Joe, and he's just angry at everything. Productivity goes down, or safety goes down, or inter-work fights. There's just always those people. And somebody always says to the boss, well, you just fire him because he's hard to work around. When we put people through the program, we may not be able to change Angry Joe, but we can change you. And then all of a sudden, Angry Joe is just angry by himself because we've given you the tools to not let things impact you as much. And when we talk about these cost savings, we know that productivity for the private sector, productivity is what they want. Productive employees are happy and they're dutiful and they're uninjured and they're out there completing the tasks in the time that engineering has said. Well, the first thing that somebody says, well, if I get this done this fast, they're just going to shorten my timeline. But if we can flip the mindset, the faster I get this done, faster my company is going to get another job, the more work we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And that mindset switch, when I say to Angry Joe, no, that's not, I've been in this industry for 30 years. But if I take the young kid, just journeyman now, and I tell him that, hey, that mindset, because look, you finish this and now you're on to, leg 2 or section B or whatever. He's like, well, yeah, I can see how that works. I'm productive at work. I take my time off when I need, but I'm dedicated at work and I'm not getting sidelined by intrusive thoughts. And we can change production, and we can change inter office fighting or inter job site fighting, or just, the things are, I don't want to go in today because that guy is just, we can change those. And from that level, we can make it less impactful on that 17-hour drive home where you're, I don't want to come back. I don't like working with that guy. Yeah. To, that guy is like, he's angry at the world. It doesn't affect me. I put it out of my head.
Yeah. Definitely.
And those are some of the small things that we'll see from this program. But mostly it's those big, impactful, fast, intensive durations. We get you in, we get you out. You're not off work for 13 weeks. You can work around the schedule. We need you in 2 days per week for 2-3 weeks, and you're back and gone. We're looking at funding. We had talked about the government about through private donations to cover wages for the day so that the company is keeping you off WCB. We have a team right now that's engaging with WCB so that we can be their first point of contact, because you're a file. They want you back to work. Well, rather than delay your time and really maybe not help, we're going to intensively train you to be better, to get through this and to get back to work for your family, but taking care of you, right? Let's focus on me. Let's keep me healthy, because they can be healthy when I'm healthy.
Sweet. No, this is good. So what's kind of the timeline then? When
we've actually learned very quickly that if we put a timeline onto things, then all of a sudden, like this whole, when we were doing the study, and then all of a sudden we get this slap with this ethics committee. Oh yeah, okay, well, so we're doing things at a pace where, we want to accelerate this, and the people that we meet and the government's ministers and stuff, they want to accelerate this. So we're, we don't want to do timelines anymore. We're working towards this. The group that we have, we're all volunteers. We're all, Dax and I are self-funding this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I got another yellow box of macaroni at home. Yeah. We're self-funding this, but we're making it work, right? Yeah. So we're hoping, we know that first paycheck, at least I can quit my job and directly work with or on Phoenix, and I can put 100% into it. And then from there, we can just grow it, right? So we're on the right track. And I think, meeting people like yourself and Dave, and, this is only going to help. This is only going to help you get your message out there. It's going to help getting our message out there. We don't know who's going to listen to this, but, there's going to be people that are going to listen to this and say, hey man, I think those guys are onto something, as crazy as it thinks, but
you never know. And that's why you never know. And that's why it's always something that builds, but it's also, it's content. And that's why, why we usually don't go this long. But it's good, because now you can take this content and you can repurpose it however you want. I'll send you the raw footage and you can do what you want to do with it. But
my hope is that these guys making these long drives can throw this on in the background and listen in their vehicles. And our conversations between oil field, and we have a soft spot for oil field, right? Yeah. It drives our economy. My wife is in oil. We're always directly linked to it. But we're hoping that through grassroots, we've always been about the person, not about the organization. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that we're for you. We're not aligned politically. You're not aligned corporately. We're doing this on our own. And I said, man, if I have to be out there flipping burgers on the street so that I can put Nick through therapy, we're doing it. We're doing it. The last thing we want to talk about is really the culmination of all of this was, I'm getting ready to leave the fire service, and Kevin and I are sitting out. It's the old fashioned around the campfire pit. And I said, hey, I have our next adventure. He's like, I mean, there's 7 old fashions in. I really don't give a shit. Let's do it. And I said, look, we're going to ride jet skis from Skagway, Alaska to Oak Bay, Victoria, all the way down the coast. And he's like, yeah, we are. Well, it started as just him and I renting some skis and doing this. And then I was like, hey, you know what? We should film this and put it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And he's up, he'd yell at me, and he phones me. He's like, hey, I have a better idea. He's like, let's make a TV show. I was like, are you drinking?
It's yellow.
So we're in the process now of leaving. Our tentative dates June 23rd to July 7th. Leaving, we've been sponsored by Yamaha for 3 years to film content of us traveling different places, personal watercrafts, and really showcasing the message of this mental health toolbox that we've created and how we can start repurposing what we've learned to teach people as we go. Not only that, learn different techniques from like indigenous cultures and people who live remote, and to see how they deal with trauma and bring it to a wider audience. So this episode, or this 7 episode, has been tentatively picked up by a major network. And we're raising funds for this. And the two have lived kind of together.
Biotic.
Yeah, because, they say, well, what do you do? Well, we're filming a TV show and we're starting a mental health clinic. And people ask us, like, when do you have time? And what I say to everybody is you never log time when you're doing what you love. And it gives us back the ability to help as many people as we can. If tomorrow we ended up in South America on a beach in a grass hut and we'd live out the rest of our lives throwing sand at each other, we'd be fine. But the last few good years of our health where we can beat ourselves up, we're going to do some pretty amazing trips. We've got a couple planned that we're in the works with right now. Not a lot of people have done, and we're going to be doing it and filming it and getting it on TV under the guise of promoting the Phoenix Foundation and promoting Canada and promoting like your mental health. And it's really going to be cool because obviously we'll be super stressed about getting all this running. And then we're going to get on the water. And for about 7 days of travel, it is you, your own thoughts, and a jet ski for miles in the ocean.
That's incredible. That's why I love motorcycling. When we get on the road, and I'll do 1,000 kilometers, or I don't know if I can do it anymore, but on my chopper with no suspension, no nothing, and just go. And that was a decade ago. Yeah, you did that one. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, I did that a lot. So but that, if you're not in control of those thoughts, that can be a long trip, right?
And this is where the episodes will be broken in such that whether you're watching it because it's entertaining, what you won't realize is that we're training you over the 7 episodes, 6 episodes. We're training you, and we'll culminate that because it's so vitally important that the Phoenix Foundation and our message gets out to the widest audience as possible. We really don't know if ever we'll be able to reach East Coast people or not, or to the States. But we think that what we've built is recreatable, and it's a great foundation. And we want to build an acceptance of mental health throughout the world, through whoever is dealing with us, and kind of like forget the stigmas and forget the types of therapy and forget your traumas and what had happened. Like, we're all humans, and it takes a village, and this is what we're about.
This is great. So if someone wanted to find you guys now and reach out to you, where do they reach out to you?
www.thephoenixfoundation.ca. I'll send you our information, our contact information. It's got our phone numbers. It's got our emails on there. But if anybody needs help, we are not turning away anybody. And this is kind of a secret, but I'm paying for some of the therapy right now because people need it. And, we've got some amazing clinicians that have offered up their time pro bono, and we will not turn anybody away because this is how
our first funding check is actually paying
me back, paying our therapist,
take care of the undisclosed amount of funds that we've taken to incorporate and get all this done, and we just for all the status.
We believe in this, and this is something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and we'll do everything we can. Anything we can to get the message out, and if that filming a TV show or sitting with you for a couple of hours, or going up and talking to a shell group in an auditorium or something, we'll do that because we want to spread this message that the days of the 80s and 70s of getting sworn at and going to get the the steam bucket and shit like that is over. It doesn't work anymore, and this is it. And thank you so much for having us on it. Thank you. We look forward to coming back on and working with you and your partner and Dave as well. I think we can do great things together.
Oh, this is my mind's spinning. This is what it does. It intimidates some people, so I'll keep some of it for now. But I hope anybody that's listening that wants to reach out, please reach out to these gentlemen and see what they can do. And it's been love to have you back on as things progress and see things how are going. But no, this is really great. So I appreciate everyone here. So any last words before we take off?
For me, is just, everybody out there, you absolutely deserve it. Never think that you don't. You absolutely deserve the happiness. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to love. And it's just a thought at the end of the day. And thank you for everybody, and thank you for listening. And let's continue on with this.
Excellent. Well, thanks, gentlemen. We'll log off for now, and we'll chat soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's it for today's episode of One More Boom Podcast. Remember, you're part of a community that doesn't settle for the status quo. Here, we push boundaries, support each other, and thrive under pressure. Whether you're out in the field or leveling up your career, we've got your back. Stay connected, stay driven, and keep embodying the grit of a different breed. Until next time, keep pushing forward. Together, we'll achieve more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of One More Boom.